All right, in this video, I'm going to be doing some practice problems before the 2.4 quiz. So I'm going to start off with a question from the 2.4 homework, and that would be number 1, part B. All right, so this one was homework 2.4.1, part B. All right. The tangent to g inverse at x equals -1, I'm going to need a point and a slope. Okay, so my point is going to be -1 and g inverse of -1. Okay, g inverse of -1 is the solution to the equation g of x equals -1. I find that right here. Okay, they're always going to put a place where x equals that value too, just to try to distract you. And I copied that just to point that out. And so that traces back to x equals 2. So that means that g inverse of -1 equals 2, and my point is -1 and 2. Okay. My slope is g inverse prime of -1 is 1 over g prime of g inverse. Well, I just found out that g inverse of -1 is 2, so that's 1 over g prime of 2, which is, what is that, 1 over -3. And so I'm ready to write my equation. Y minus 2 is -1/3 of x minus -1. All right. Next, somebody requested I work number 6 from the homework, and that one's algebraic, so I like that. All right, so next let's talk about f of x equals 1 plus 2x plus sine x. And g is the inverse function of f. Find g prime of 1. All right. So I'm going to just use the formula right now. G prime is f inverse prime of 1. We know f inverse prime is 1 over f prime of f inverse. And the question is, what is f inverse of 1? So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to, maybe in red, I'll say f inverse of 1 is the kind of the solution to the equation f of x equals 1. Okay? And when it's algebraic like this, especially if it's going to be the most obvious thing. Okay? So you see 1 plus 2x plus sine x, and it's got to either be 0 or 1 or -1 or something it has to be obvious, or else they will tell you in the stem of the question. So if you look, you can see that f of 0 is pretty clearly 1. So I'm going to say x equals 0, because it's 1 plus 0 plus sine of 0, which is 0. Okay? So that means that f inverse of 1 is equal to 0. And then, okay, well, now I'm going to go in, because that's what I was looking for. So this is going to be 1 over f prime. And now I'm going to need f prime of x, right? So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say f prime of x is equal to the derivative of 1 is 0, the derivative of 2x is 2, and the derivative of sine of x is cosine x. Okay, so that f prime of 0, which is what I'm hoping to get anyway, is going to be 2 plus the cosine of 0, which is going to be 2 plus 1, and then this will end up being 1 over that same 3 there. Anybody have any? Yes. Sure. Yes. 7b. Yeah, sure. That one is a chain rule question, but I will happily work that one for us. And in the future, I'm going to ask you not to sit at that desk. Yeah. All right, so yeah, no big deal. The sign got removed, but that's my desk. I like to stand back there sometimes. So y equals 1 over f of x, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite this as f of x to the negative first power. And so when I go to take the derivative of it, I'll just use the chain rule. The derivative of, the outside is the thing to the -1, so it'll be negative that thing to the -2. Then we need to multiply by the derivative of the inside, and so that'll be f prime of x. Let's leave the inside the same. All right. Then, what am I actually looking for? Equation for the line tangent to the graph of 1 over f of x at x equals 0. So the point will be x is 0, y is 1 over f of 0, so it's 1 over 2. The slope, I'm going to use f prime, y prime, so it's negative f of 0 is equal to 2 times f prime of 0. What is f prime of 0? Oh, okay, they gave us a formula for f prime of x. Sine of pi x plus x squared plus 3. And we're going to plug in 0 for x, right, because we want f prime of 0. Yeah. And so f prime of 0 will be sine of 0, 0 plus 0 plus 3. If I take 2 to the negative second power, that's going to be 1 over 4, and then multiplied by 3. Do you want to... Oh. Yeah, I'm going to be out after this period, but yeah, we're going to be all right. I will. All right. So that, I think... Oh, and I've got a point and a slope. I just need an equation now. And it's y minus a half is equal to negative 3/4 times x minus 0. Okay. Now, were there any others before I go and cook you up a graph example that's going to be eerily similar to an example you're going to work here in a second on the quiz? No? All right. Well, let's get it. All right. If you're watching, I'm going to just pause and get you that. All right, here you go. And so this is an example of the graph situation. And what I'll say is that this is definitely on the quiz, but it's not on the test, right? I told y'all that on the test, what you have to worry about, the only thing, is the tabular example, the one with data in the table where it's very direct. Here's the inverse function, find the derivative of the inverse function at this value. And I'm pretty sure we can do that, but this is, I'm just extending it a little bit. A question that they could ask. If h is equal to f inverse, find the value of h of, let's say, hold on, I need to count, 7. Okay. Let's just give you some perspective here, make it a little easier. All right, does anybody have a hypothesis for h of 7? Yes, h of 7 is f inverse of 7, which is the solutions to f of x equals 7. So I go over here to the y-axis because that's, y is f of x. And I want to know where f of x is 7. So I'm going to go over here to y equals 7, and I'm going to look for some graph. Hey, look, I just found it. And I'm going to backtrack to what got me there, and that's x equals 6. So I'm going to say that f inverse of 7 equals 6, and I'll say h of 7 equals 6. Then I might ask you to find h prime of 2. Okay. This is going to use a different thing. So I'm going to clear out the stuff in blue. Oh. There we go, finally. All right. So in finding h prime of 2, we know that h is f inverse. Oops, forgot to write that. I guess I erased it. All right, h prime of 2 is f inverse prime of 2. We've got a formula for that. That's 1 over f prime of f inverse of 2. Okay, and, well, I think we need to figure out what's f inverse of 2. What is f inverse of 2? 0, yes. I go over here, y equals 2. Oh, there it is. I'm on it. And that's at x equals 0. So that's 1 over f prime of 0. And f prime of 0 is the slope of this line segment here on the left, which is looking like 4/3. Yeah, I had hoped for it to be 4/3. So it's 1 over 4/3, and that's 3/4. So what I'm saying is that this graph example is really no different from the table example. You just have to do a little bit of square counting at the end. You know, where I was getting that 4/3 was this, right? Let's rise over run. To be as clear as possible. And so it was 1 over 4/3. I was roasting up the 3/4. Anybody else anything? I think we're going to be ready to quiz. Yeah, and I think that this has been a solid enough set of practice problems. Hold up, let me look and just make sure. Yeah, none of these problems aren't anything that you didn't see. Oh, hold on, I've got one more. For the people that I'm not going to be here for, right? Okay, so f of x is something like x to the 6 plus x to the 5. How about that? And I guess we don't need to be viewing the grid anymore. All right, and x to the 6 plus x to the 5. Let g equal f inverse of x. It's known that g of 2 equals 1. Find g prime of 2. Okay. G of 2 is equal to 1 because f of 1 equals 2, right? F of 1 equals 1 plus 1 is 2, meaning that f inverse of 2 equals 1, so g of 2 equals 1. That's where that came from. Okay, now find g prime of 2. Well, I know that that's going to be 1 over f prime of f inverse of 2. F inverse of 2 is 1 because g is f inverse. And so now I just need to find f prime and then plug in 1. So I'm going to go down over here, grab f, take f's derivative, 6x to the 5 plus 5x to the 4. F prime with 1 plugged in is going to be 6 plus 5, which is 11. And I'll conclude that g prime of 2 is 1 over 11. Okay, and that's one algebraic example. Let me give you another one real quick because I don't see one like it on the homework. F equals 1 over 20 x minus 6 to the 5. I don't know, just got to switch up the numbers enough so it's a little different. Okay, this one I might ask you, what's f inverse of 1 over 20? You may see what that one's going to be. I think your best shot at solving that is by just looking at the equation and trying to figure out, hey, what kind of x can I plug in to get 1/20th back for f? What kind of x would I need to plug in? I think 7. 7, yeah, because we would need to have 1 left over. So x equals 7, so f inverse of 1 over 20 equals 7. Okay, we can work with that. F inverse prime of 1/20th is going to equal, we're going to use our formula, 1 over f prime of f inverse of 1 over 20. And f inverse of 1 over 20 we just found was 7, so 1 over f prime of 7. I'm going to need to take the derivative of f. And so we can do that using the chain rule, right? Really, it's power rule, and then we'll be aware of chain, right? 5 over 20 is 1 over 4. Decrease the power by 1. and then we'll multiply by the derivative of the inside, but the derivative of the inside is the derivative of x minus 6, which is just 1. So I'm going to just, okay, so I guess that's the derivative, and f prime of 7 is equal to 1/4 of 7 minus 6 is 1 to the 4, it's just 1/4. So I'm going to say that this is 1 over 1/4, which is going to be 4. And that, a very comprehensive set of practice problems that will leave you prepared for anything you might see on the 2.4 quiz.